hit record, so now everything is going to tape. But we haven't really started yet.
So I could self-incriminate now, but not later.
Yes, exactly. And we can just sort of exhale here at the beginning. This is fine. I feel like I'm nervous about this, so that would, like in the context of a flute recital, it might cause me to talk faster than normal.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be great. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of an untitled Three Rivers podcast featuring conversations with our students, faculty, and staff. My name is Andrew Marvin. I teach English at Three Rivers, and my guest today is Séamus Welsh. Shay is a student, a library enthusiast, an anxious academic, self-described, a taiko competitor, a bookworm, and a beginning photographer. Shay, it's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you.
How was your summer?
It was really busy. I took summer classes, so I didn't have a summer.
How many summer classes did you take?
I just took one. I don't know why I said that in a plural sense. I took one summer classes.
One is a lot of summer classes because they're so condensed.
Yeah, you're the worst teacher I could be, using the worst grammar in front of.
I taught one summer class, and the number of classes you teach will take up the amount of time you have, I think, regardless. And I'm sure it's the same for you.
Yeah, no, it was just one summer class, and it was all I did until it was over.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Right. I remember you saying that when I asked you to be on the show, that you were finishing up your summer class.
Yeah. It was like working on it for probably 2 to 6 hours a day every day, because there was the schedule was crazy. When the class first started and I saw the syllabus, I genuinely considered dropping it because I didn't know if I could do it, because there was a due date every single day with only 3 days off for 6 weeks, and they weren't tiny due dates, but somehow I did it. And I'm glad I got it out of the way, because I would have had to do it eventually anyways. Yeah,
that's intense. The summer is very condensed. I only do deadlines every 2 or 3 days, so every day is a lot.
Yeah, but also, to be fair, I think the assignments would have taken a lot of time, even if it was not a summer class. And I feel like those assignments would have been really hard to balance at the same time as any other class. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I did it where that was the only homework I had to worry about.
Yes, yeah. I think that's a great perspective. Yeah. Very cool. I wanted to start by talking about summer because as we record this, I think there's 3 days left in summer technically. And as an academic, I really think about summer a lot because it has a very powerful presence, I feel like, in my life. And so I wanted to start by asking you what your relationship to summer as a student is like.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, this summer was the only summer I've taken a summer class. I didn't do that before because it's hitting me a little bit that I've been here for a long time and I'm going to be here for more time.
Slow and steady.
Yeah. Well, I was doing a certificate and now I'm doing an associate. So I'm the end of one and beginning another. So let's do it all over again. But before that, I mean, I really love finding events to do. Me and my fiance are always finding something to go do every weekend. So the summer is I have to make the most of it, and we try to go out and do something most days.
Yes, I think that captures how a lot of people feel about the summer. It's something that must be seized.
Yes.
And it's the only season that ends, because end of summer is just, such a bittersweet time. But there's always this expectation of how can I make the most of it, and did I make the most of it?
Yeah, I definitely have big FOMO about missing events, even though it's not like I'm going to events with anyone else besides my fiance, but I'll find them on Facebook or on Eventbrite or Patch, which is a tiny little thing. But there's always 5 going on in the same day, and you can only pick one of them or maybe 2 of them. So it's I want to have a vacation, but I get stressed about the vacation and treat it the same way I would homework a little bit. It's I've made a summer schedule, and just instead of having homework to get done, I have things to get done.
Yes.
They're fun things, though.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. As for a professor, I think it's always, I'm finally going to get to all the things that I've had to put on the back burner during the school year. And then you try to find the motivation. But I think all of us teachers work so hard during the academic year, if I do say so myself, that it is kind of hard to not just collapse for 3 months.
And then do nothing. But I mean, I guess doing nothing is also a valuable way to spend time if you're always doing something.
Yes, and I've tried this summer, in retrospect now, to look back on and not feel super bad that I didn't get 50 million things done that I've been putting off. Yeah. Because I really feel like summer is a struggle for me because I'm a structured sort of person. And all that free time seems great in theory, but I think that that is school year, Mr. Marvin, Andrew Marvin, is the true Andrew Marvin.
Well, what is your structure outside of school?
I try to be diligent with my times. Like, I've got a notebook over here where I structure most of my work days in terms of where I block it out. So I've got class from here to here. I've got a meeting from here to here. That means I've got 3 hours. How am I going to use that time? And so, that sort of helps me to not have to, in the moment, be like, okay, what should I do right now until class? Yeah. So it's just a little intentionality that I try to maintain.
And so you definitely don't have TikTok installed on your phone, though.
Oh, absolutely not.
Don't install it. You can never get rid of it.
Yeah. I don't keep... This is not about me, as you know, but I don't keep social media apps on my phone. Those are all on my iPad.
Really?
Yeah, because the iPad is pure consumption and entertainment.
Do you have TikTok on the iPad?
No.
What social media do you have on the iPad?
Since the demise of Twitter,
it still exists.
It still exists, but I don't know. I really have mostly stopped using anything. I read Mastodon, which is a federated Twitter-like for nerds. What? Yes, exactly. Maybe
is it?
There aren't show notes yet, but maybe I'll put a link to Mastodon in the show notes when there are show notes. And then, I always try to grab my username, which I won't disclose here on the air, but I always try to grab my username on the new network so that nobody else squats
so are you
on it.
Threads? I'm not.
I can't confirm or deny whether I'm on Threads, but I've heard of it.
I do have an Instagram account only because my fiance was like, I post pictures of us and you don't post pictures of us. And I was like, I don't have an Instagram. So I reactivated it just so I could post like 3 pictures of us a year and I don't open it. So I can't go to Threads. I can't do it.
Okay. Yeah, there's pressure because if your people are in a certain place, you kind of want to be there too.
Yeah.
But Instagram makes me sad. I used to...
Same. That's why I don't really like it.
Everybody's living their best life except for me. What?
Yeah, but that's how everyone feels. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I am stuck in the big black hole of Twitter, though.
Is that a new development, or you're still there
Still there. Okay. No, that's where I'm like a little bit... I'm older than... I'm a non-traditional student. I'm not old, but I am older than most of the students. So they don't know, but we are the people that have always been on Twitter. Can't leave. I feel like Twitter today is people that are like between the age of like 24 and 36, and we're all like, I hate it here, and but we just keep coming back.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, I think it's where your people are, but now there's Blue Sky and Threads and Mastodon and stuff.
On the Truth Social one.
I'm not familiar with that.
Don't become familiar with that's the Trump one. That's where Trump is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with who Trump is, but...
Who's that?
Exactly.
Moving on.
I've never heard of that person.
Yeah.
We're off to a good start, I think.
On Twitter?
Twitter? I mean, I don't know. People care about that.
Okay.
But so you generally have positive feelings about summer.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think so.
Glad to hear.
It is like a time to breathe. I stress about school a lot, like probably more than I should. I'll stress about things even if it's like a subject I'm good at. I'm like, everything feels like end of the world stakes all of the time. So then summer is finally like, there's nothing to do except for this most recent summer, but also photography was really fun.
Yes.
So it was a very stressful class, but I also really did enjoy it. And it was really intense as a summer class, but I think the intensity kind of forced me to improve really rapidly. So like my photography I submitted on day 1 and my photography I submitted at the very end of it was like, at least I think, like leaps and bounds apart. So it definitely was worth it.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that photography was the super strenuous summer course that you were describing earlier.
Yeah, I didn't even say what it was. It was digital photography with Kevin Amenta, and it's just, he's a really good teacher because he definitely really knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And like he has a super large body of impressive work to prove what he knows what he's talking about. It's just the assignments are really time consuming. And sometimes, like there was only one assignment that I submitted incomplete because there was all of a sudden a thunderstorm and the camera doesn't do well in a thunderstorm. So it's also like a lot of planning ahead of when am I going to be able to do this? And you have to go out to different locations to shoot different things and trying to find them. So it just takes a lot of time. And then, I mean, Photoshop is time consuming. All of a sudden you've been working on one picture for like 3 hours, but I have to submit 30. So maybe I should move on every day.
Yeah. Photoshop is a super heavy program that I've only very briefly dabbled in some class that I don't even remember from
I love
college.
it, but it's a lot.
I wish, because I feel like it's a great thing to have some ownership of.
Yeah, I started using Photoshop in like 10th grade, so that was in 2015, and I really loved it back then. I used to focus more on like digital art, and then I kind of just fell off of it as I did other things for a long time. So digital photography was getting back in there, and I was definitely rusty, and also Photoshop has changed a lot since then. But I started to pick it up quickly because I had already had some familiarity with the program. I do think that the digital photography course would be like, I think I probably would have dropped it if I hadn't used Photoshop before, because I think like learning photography and Photoshop at the same time is kind of a lot. I feel like you have to kind of come into that class with at least some understanding of Photoshop out the gate.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I might have to call upon you to come up with artwork for this show then.
Oh boy, all right.
Did you, was there 1 or 2 or 3 like gems of information from Professor Amenta's class about photography that you could share with the listeners? Not to spoil his enrollment, but...
No. Then I get an email from him of like, I heard what you said. I mean, as we were talking before we recorded about reading the manual for this, I mean, that is like the number one gem of photography is read your camera's manual, which is like not a fun hint, but a lot of questions in the class about your camera, he like wouldn't answer because he's like, I can't answer that because everyone has a different camera. Because they don't make you buy like a specific one. It's just a DSLR. And they're all pretty different, especially like they'll call settings different things, or the buttons are in different places, or they like literally just work different. Pretty much any question you have can be answered in the manual. But I took the same approach with photography that I do with most classes, which is if something doesn't make sense to me, someone out there in the world can explain it to me in a way that does.
Yes.
So I will like put it into YouTube and then watch like 10 different videos on the same topic from different people, because one of them will make sense. Or like, and in photography and Photoshop in general, well, I guess this applies to photography because it applies to Photoshop. If you ask, how do I do insert thing here? There's always like 10 different answers in Photoshop. There's a lot of different ways you can do things. So also like if the way the teacher is telling you to do something is like just not jiving with you, just do it a different way. Yeah. That's where I'm like, don't tell Kevin Amenta I said that. But like one time I just didn't want to do the black and white. So maybe the whole photo was just desaturated and not technically black and white, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Because I still got an A at the end.
Right. There you go. Congratulations on the A. What I love about that takeaway is that it's not photography specific. Like I was expecting you to talk about the rule of threes or always have your grid lines turned on your phone or something like that.
I mean, the harsh opposing lines are one of my favorite things. So, because I feel like you got to like learn how to follow the rule of threes and then break it because everything's a lot more fun. It's like grammar too, you know. You learn how to do proper grammar. And then if you want to go into like poetry specifically, a lot of the fun with it becomes breaking the grammar.
Yes.
And I feel like photography is the same way. You definitely have to learn the fundamentals and like do things the right way. But I think the class is really structured well in that too, where a lot of the assignments at the beginning are just forcing you to do things kind of by the book. And then the end assignments are very much so like, okay, now do whatever you want. I mean, as within reason. But like one of the final assignments was to pick a photographer you like and do like a little essay write-up about who is this person. But then we had to have 7 of their photos of the famous photographer and then do 7 of ours and try to emulate their work. And I went into toy photography. So that was really fun. And I was focusing on like practical effects. I covered my computer desk in dirt and then put some matches on fire in like toy dinosaur mouths, and it was like, this is what killed the dinosaurs.
That's cool.
Yeah, don't smoke.
No, but I do love that takeaway because I think about it a lot too in terms of, not knowing how to do something. I think is a source of stress, and I've been trying to remind myself more lately to find the helpful people.
Yeah.
And certainly not every teacher is for everybody, but yeah, once you find the helpful people, it's such a relief. Like, thank goodness I found you and you can help me and now I feel better.
Yeah, or even sometimes if you're just watching different videos of people explaining different things, even if the way that they've shown you of like, this is how I do a sepia in Photoshop, because that's definitely one thing that you could do like 5 different ways. If you want to make something sepia tone, there's like a bunch of ways to do it. Even if you don't really like the way that they're doing it, I still think it's helpful to learn different ways and have different people's perspectives on how to achieve different like artistic results, because maybe you're not going to use it in general, but it might be fun to throw that effect on top of something else later.
Yes.
And you still get exposure to different areas of the program and different skills, or even just different ways of seeing the world with your camera.
Yeah, that's why I'm always a little bit guilty about, students take English 1010 with me and then come back for English 1020, which I super appreciate. But I also feel a little bit like it is important to get more than the Mr. Marvin perspective.
Gosh. I talk about that with people all the time, where that's why I say I like math more than English, because when you get in a 100 on a quiz in math, you know that every single teacher would give you that 100 on the quiz in math. And when I get a 100 on a paper, that's a great feeling. I put a lot of work into it. I'm really like proud of the result. But it's always in the back of my mind of maybe at this point I've just built up a good enough rapport that I can get away with writing subpar work, and another teacher, if this was the first essay of mine that they read, they would give it a C and walk away.
Yeah.
So I took you with both classes, and if I had to take another English class, I'd probably take you again.
Well, I appreciate that. That was not shots fired at you specifically. But I'm glad you brought up your papers, because I did want to talk about those, because you did take English formerly known as English 101 and English 102. And 101 was online, right?
Yeah, it was my first ever college class.
Wow, look at that.
Technically, I went to college for 3 months in 2017, but I don't really remember it so well. So this time around, it was my first one.
And then we did 102 in person.
Yeah, like 2 years later.
So what I wanted to ask you specifically, in thinking about having Shay on for episode 1, is how do you, because you've written some of the memorable papers that I've read, and I've read many papers, and some of them stick with you. And I'm wondering, what can you tell us about your thought process? What are you trying to achieve? Because I feel like what you've produced, for me at least, is really sort of demonstrative of what is possible with analyzing literature or writing argumentative stuff in 101 in a way that I don't typically see.
Well, what do you typically see?
Well, I just mean your papers, I feel like, were, exceeded my expectations. It wasn't just, we should legalize weed, and let me tell you about how abortion rights are important. And all that stuff is important. But maybe just starting with the topics to address the assignment, I feel like the topics themselves were out of the box. Like what you did for 101, your final paper was about
mukbangs.
Competitive food eating competitions.
Oh, so that paper specifically so we just had to write a research paper about something. And that really is the reason why I took you again for 102 was your allowing us to kind of just write a paper about something. I mean, it was like each paper had to achieve a certain skill, but the topic could be up to us as long as we defended it well enough to like make it worthy of your time. And I was so stressed about what I would write for the research paper. I remember I was talking to my now fiance about like, what can I even write that much about? Because it was the longest paper I'd written in a while. I've been out of school working for a while, so I felt pretty rusty still. And he was just like, well, what do you know a lot about? And that's something I know a lot about is mukbangs. And so I figured, why not? I also, when I come up with essay topics, I do try to keep in mind that you've taught this class many times now, and you've given out this essay assignment many times now. And I don't want to give my teacher a paper that he's probably read like 50 times. That also makes me worried that I'm going to get a bad grade on it because I don't know. I feel like if I was a teacher and I got and I'm teaching trifles and then I get a lot of papers that are like, in trifles, the women stay in the kitchen the whole time. And that means that's where the men say they should be the end.
Spoilers for trifles.
Yeah, spoilers for trifles. They stay in the kitchen the whole time. But I feel like it's not going to have any, even if to me as like a first time reader of the story and thinking about it, even if to me I'm like, wow, that's blowing my mind right now, I feel like at a certain point it might lose its novelty to the teacher who's read it 50 times. So I'm also kind of thinking about like, what's something I can say about this that maybe hasn't been said yet. A lot of what I think about papers came from the text from 101, They Say, I Say. So I read the whole book outside of the assigned chapters. And a lot of it, that book is a lot of how I think about writing now in terms of what can I contribute to a conversation that maybe hasn't already been said. And if I'm writing a paper that I know has been written a million times, it's hard for me to finish it or really care about it because why would I spend so much time saying something that someone else has already spent a lot of time saying?
Yes, thank you for being one of the papers that doesn't just repeat things. I do feel a little bit guilty about, because you're 100% correct, that I give my students virtually 100% freedom when it comes to topic selection, because I think that's an important part of the writing process is figuring out what you think about, what you care about, and what you have to say about it.
Yeah.
And what I want, ideally, is the kinds of things like you and other students have given me, where it's like, you really put some time into it. I do think it makes it more difficult for some students to have that freedom of choice because it does lead to paralysis.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think a lot of it also just comes, like the comfortability with that amount of choice, I think probably just comes with the fact that I have had more experience writing. I went to the Greater Hartford Academy of the Arts for high school, and I did music at first, but I switched into the creative writing department, which doesn't exist anymore. Isn't that so tragic?
Devastating.
They put all the budget into musical theater and got rid of us.
Oh, well, musical theater is good too.
That is good too, but creative writing just isn't a department anymore, which I think is very tragic. But so I've also just been more lucky to have the opportunity that I've had a lot of teachers in different, so a lot of my classes in high school were pretty hipstery art classes about writing. I had 5 different writing classes instead of 1 English and then math and science and stuff. It also means I know nothing about science, but it's fine. I min-maxed myself, but that's how I feel. But I just think I've had a lot of. I think I've had a lot of good teachers I think I've had teachers that think about writing and analyzing literature in kind of eccentric ways, and I think that's rubbed off on me over the years.
Very cool. I think the teacher makes a big difference to the whole experience.
For sure.
I do wonder, maybe literature would be a better place to give, because I'm doing 1020 now online, and I have students that are like, I don't know what our paper is supposed to be about. And I'm like, well, what are you into with regard to the things that we've read? So yeah, I know some of my colleagues in the department, will have a selection of prepared topics, but also give students the freedom to do whatever they want. I just feel like that would lead to a lot of the topic of least resistance, like you said, with trifles.
I think it's, for me, I have a really hard time. I'll have a really hard time writing a paper if I don't care about it. If I'm bored with the assignment, it's probably not getting done. So I think it's also, thinking about papers not just as like I have to get this over with and get the grade and hand it in. I know a lot of people are not thrilled about writing essays, but trying to find a way to make the process of writing the essay enjoyable for yourself. I think that comes down to you have to care about it. And if you're writing about something you don't care about just to get the grade, you're probably not going to get a good grade. Because I also think your teacher can probably tell, like, if you wrote this like 5 minutes before you handed it in and you don't believe in what you're saying. I feel like it shows up in your writing, or at least it shows up in my writing, I think. But I don't know. Definitely. I also think about writing essays a lot as if they are video essays that I would put out on YouTube.
Tell me about that. What does that mean?
So there's like a whole emerging genre that came off of commentary videos on YouTube that's video essays. So people putting out like more long form content about a whole variety of things. And I really like some of these creators who there's one called, her YouTube channel is Izzy with a bunch of Z's at the end. And she'll make like anywhere between like 30 and 90-minute videos about like internet culture. She's like, let me tell you about the drama that went down on Club Penguin in 2008 or something like that. But I think the way that these people make videos about things that they're passionate about, when you think about it, you're like, she just talked about something for like 60 minutes, which means the script she wrote for that video is a really long essay. And when I start thinking about assignments like that, it becomes easier to get them done. So instead of being like, oh my God, I'm just trying to get this paper done so I can get my A and move on to the next class and get my degree, it's more so of like, I have a captive audience and I get to make my teacher learn about mukbangs whether he wants to or not, because you have to read this paper because you made me write it.
Yes.
And it's a lot more fun that way if you think about the paper as I get to tell somebody something that I like and they have to listen to it.
Yes.
Because I don't know if my fiance wants me to be like, let me tell you who Trisha Paytas is. What do you mean you don't know who Trisha Paytas is? She's so important to the history of mukbangs.
Yeah.
But I can make Mr. Marvin learn about Trisha Paytas. I did put her in my citations. That was ridiculous.
Well, there you go. I mean, I do like that video essay approach, because this is another thing I spent a lot of time thinking / feeling bad about, because, you know, a lot of composition studies are going multimodal, which means not just write a paper.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, I'm 36, but I feel like the older I get, the more I value just the writing process and how, you know, there's no substitute for taking messy, complicated ideas and transforming them into concrete words, sentences, paragraphs that other people can understand and enjoy.
Yeah.
And, you know, reading and writing and thinking have been around for ever, literally. YouTube has been around for who knows how long. But I like how you pointed out that the person that does the video essay, because again, there's amazing analysis. I mean, I can lose a lot of time on YouTube.
Yeah.
We talked about social media before we started recording. YouTube is my wasteland of hours, but I feel like everything that I'm watching is delicious in terms of its value.
All bon appetit. That's the only challenge. That's the only channel I watch.
Yeah, and it knows what I like.
Yeah, the algorithm's pretty good.
Yeah, but the point that you made about how that video essay has a huge script behind it.
It's like, I don't think that person was trudging through the script like, oh my God, I just have to get this over with so I can get my internet A. They were doing it because it's something that they care about. So it's like, if I find something I care about, then I could write a really long essay about it too, probably. And I think then the like length and page requirements become a lot less daunting if you enjoy what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah, finding a way in and finding a way to care about it, I think is in large part the whole battle.
Yeah.
Do you find, because you mentioned, you also wanted me to introduce you as a bookworm, which I think I said at the beginning of the show. What role or relationship does reading play in your writing process, or just, you know, even in your non-academic life?
Oh, well, I don't think you can be a good writer unless you read. And maybe that's a hot take, but I don't think it's a hot take.
I don't think so.
I think that's true.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think your writing will kind of take on what you read, whether you want it to or not. Just because, you know, you'll be influenced by the styles of writing that you consume, or, if you read a lot of different things, then you'll be exposed to a lot of different styles of writing, and you might pick it up of like, oh, maybe that's something I could try. Kind of like photography, if you look at a lot of people's work and then you emulate it, that's still not in like a copyright kind of way, but if you emulate other people's work, it can improve your own as you learn new skills and new ways of talking.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in write like you talk, write like you talk. That's
Yes.
not a good sentence
not
to
a good
not
example.
be able to say. But when like the structure of my essays, I try to go in a very like linear kind of way. And so it's literally like the introduction is I'm introducing you to what I'm about to talk about, but not in an announcer voice kind of way. And then the conclusion is the conclusion I have. So then all the body paragraphs have to be structured in a way of I have to introduce you and then guide you to my conclusion. So here's how I got here. So usually the body paragraphs kind of go in the same way of what order I research things in a little bit, because that's how I got to the conclusion. This, then that, and now all of a sudden, here's the final big statement. How does my reading impact? I don't know, because I read a lot of graphic novels, and I don't make any graphic novels.
Do you have a reading practice?
I read a lot now. I did go through a spell. I read a ton as a kid and a ton in middle school and high school, and then I didn't read anything for like 4 years.
It's time consuming, and you can't really do anything else while you're doing it.
And then I started reading again in 2020, like everybody else who reads, and then I just didn't stop because I was kind of like, oh, why did I stop doing this? I really like it. Why did I stop doing the things that I like? I do have a Goodreads yearly challenge that I'm super ashamed to be so behind on right now because of the summer class. I got to read 30 books by the end of the year, but I did read 3 today. So
3 books today.
But they were graphic novels.
Okay, that counts.
But they count. And also a lot of my reading practice is like allowing myself to read whatever I want, and it counts. So like people yell a lot on those book themed Facebook groups over whether or not you can put an audiobook you listen to in your Goodreads. I think you can. You consumed the story. I just finished listening to The Martian, which means I put it in my Goodreads that I read it.
Yeah.
And it was really good, and I cried at the end. I hate that that's real. I really did. It was really good. But I try to read different things within reason. I don't want to like force myself to read something that really is not for me. I do try to focus on graphic novels about people I share nothing in common with. I don't know exactly how to describe that any way else, because it doesn't necessarily have to be like a certain genre. But I like graphic novels specifically because they're visual. So I want someone to tell me about their life or something that happened, because in a graphic novel format, they can also show me what happened. And I just think it makes you a better person to know about people that you share nothing in common with.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've, especially this semester, because we've so much emphasis on diversity, equity, inclusion, and I've really tried to make a point of it this semester to say that the strength of the class is what everybody brings to it. And the purpose of going to college is to expose yourself not just to ideas that you wouldn't have otherwise encountered, but people that you wouldn't have otherwise encountered.
Especially here. We have like a super diverse population, I think.
Yes. One of the great perks, I think, of a community college. I'm listening to the audiobook of The Silmarillion.
What is that?
It's the sequel to The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, gosh.
No thoughts about that?
I'm so sorry. I hate The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay. Well, we can wrap up. That's fine.
No, only because when I was a kid, we didn't have cable, but we had a lot of VHSs. And my older siblings, our half siblings, they would spend like every other weekend with us. And The Lord of the Rings was my older brother's favorite movies, and we had them all on VHS, and he would just pick one of them and make me watch it with him every other weekend for like years. I've seen them so many times, and also I can't tell you anything about them because I think my brain at this point has just refused to retain any information about anything Tolkien or really anything high fantasy at this point. Can't even list 5 characters, but I've seen the movies many, many times. Too many times.
That's reasonable, I think. They're good movies. I've read The Hobbit is sort of my I don't know what to read next, and I'm too tired to pick or purchase something, so I'll just start reading The Hobbit again. So I read that a bunch.
The books?
Sometimes, only, I don't know. I've probably read The Hobbit more because I remember reading that on the bus, the school bus, as some form of child. I don't typically reread books, but I am rereading a lot of Cormac McCarthy's novels right now because he just passed away a month or two ago, I think. So, and those are books that reward, like all good literature or whatever you like, really rewards, repeated ventures.
Yeah, that is fair. I don't reread books in general. My favorite book is The Burn Journal by Brent Runyon, and I've read that book many, many times, and I would reread it again. It's been like 2 years since I read it, so I should probably read it again. It's my favorite book for a reason.
That's cool.
Yeah, it makes me cry every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Burn Journal. When there are show notes, we'll put that in the show notes too.
Oh, yeah. It's really heavy, though.
Yeah.
It's really heavy. It's about a man who had tried to kill himself by setting himself on fire. It's a real story, and he didn't die. And then the whole book is about him, everyone asking him, like, why did you do that? And he realized he didn't have an answer. And he's like, I don't know why I did that. So the majority of the book is about him trying to figure out why did I do that, and then kind of learning to want to live. And I just think I read it in 6th grade. I don't know why that was in my 6th grade library. It was kind of a lot for a 6th grader, but I do think like reading that book was like a thing that changed me as a person. And kind of like, because I was in 6th grade, so I was like 11 or 12, and you're kind of forming opinions about the world, and that book like formed a lot of my opinions of what I think about life and stuff. So I reread it every couple of years to see how do I feel about it now, being older. Since the first time I read it, I was 11, so it hits a little different every time I read it.
Yeah, and so it was literally a formative book for you.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a great perk of rereading things is that you almost reread them as a different person. And so if you're annotating, like I always tell my students, read and annotate, then you can say, what did my 21-year-old self write in the margin when they read this scene, and how do I feel about that now?
Yeah, and if you bought the book, you can highlight in it. That's like another thing people like are. I'm in a lot of like Facebook groups about books, and bookie Facebook group people love to argue about everything, and it's kind of part of the fun of being in the group. But they will argue about whether you should annotate in a book. If you bought it, do whatever you want to it. If it's from the library, do not write in it.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the rule.
Yes, I know students hesitate to mark things up because they want to sell stuff back to the bookstore and that kind of thing.
They're going to give you like $10 for it. It's like GameStop.
Yeah, $10 is $10. But the libraries part is a great segue. Nice job, because you love libraries.
I love them.
What do you love about them?
Everything about them.
What's not to love?
What's not to love? None of it. All of it. I love it. So I'm doing the library science certificate program, if you couldn't tell. This is my last semester in it. I'm really sad that it's my last semester in it. I work in the Three Rivers Library, and I also have an internship at Groton Public Library right now, so I'm in a library most days.
Wonderful.
I just think they're valuable places. I think the library is more than a place with books, especially now. Like the libraries in general, and I'm talking about public libraries kind of. Libraries in general have been purposefully trying to shift their public perception from being seen as a place with books to being seen as a community center.
Nice.
So if you like connect with your public local library, whichever one that is, you'll find that they're doing things that aren't just books. Like there's always things going on. There's always events. Usually, sometimes you can get like discounted like concert tickets from your library. Like the library's full of cool people. We do cool things.
Yes, I agree. It always, especially, I wrote a lot of my master's thesis in the library. Shout out to Lucy Robbins Wells in Newington, Connecticut. But for now, I still say, and this might be a quote that I'm aping from somewhere, but I always say, when in doubt, go to the library.
Yeah, it's a great thing to say.
I think somebody else said it, so I won't take credit for it. But it just really feels like an oasis. I mean, there are public restrooms there. There are quiet, solitudinous spaces for people to do things. And I think, that's a great point about a place where there are a bunch of books versus a community space. Because even when I think of library, I think of old books in dust jackets. But it's so much more than that, and really is a safe space for everybody.
Yeah, and I think today, everything's very expensive and everything costs money. And by everything, that includes like being alive costs money. Because if you go out places and you hang out for too long without spending any money, now you're loitering. And it's like, I feel like the library is also one of the places that you can still exist in for free. So like there's no, like when you come to the library and you don't work there, you're not called a customer. Like we never call library people customers. I mean, they're patrons only because we don't really know what else to call you. Also, the people who work in like a public library have passion for the community and do want to help you. Like if someone needs help with something in the library, even if a librarian doesn't do that, they're also someone who will find it for you. So a lot of public library work is connecting people with resources. So like just yesterday at Groton Public Library, what I did for most of my internship was help this lady get through her like insurance paperwork and then fax it over so she could figure it out. Like the library is genuinely a place you can go if you have a question that you can't really Google, because that when people ask me, you're studying library science, what even is that? Still don't really know how to answer that question because it's a lot of things. It's kind of like, that's the point. It's like being a little bit of a jack of all trades. But I think it's like the art of finding answers. And I mean, one of the classes you take, Intro to Reference Services, which is like getting people answers, every week on top of assignments, the teacher would give us a question that you can't really Google easily. And then you'd have to answer it and also give sources that didn't end in .com. So like the first question in the class was, a patron asks you, if I sell my house, will I fall below the poverty line so that I can get health insurance and pay off this bill? And like, it's a weird question, but those are kind of the problems you encounter in a library. So it's like if you have questions or you just need a community resource, regardless of what it is, like there are people in the library that not only can help you, but have a specific passion for helping you.
Right. And that goes back to what we were saying earlier about finding the helpful people. It's just like, this is a building of helpful people.
Yeah.
I almost feel like that's a good spot to end on. But I did want to talk to you about at least one more thing, because when you filled out the my podcast intake request form,
good name.
Thank you. Which helped me kind of prepare some stuff to talk to you about, in addition to the stuff that I already had in mind. You mentioned in that form, and earlier in our conversation, you mentioned anxiety.
Ugh.
And whenever I see or hear somebody disclose that, I'm always like, yes, one of my kindred.
One of us.
Yeah, one of us, because my relationship with anxiety has really blossomed in the past couple of years.
No.
I know you mentioned your academic anxiety. Is it mostly academic, or does it infiltrate other aspects of your life as well?
Oh, I think it infiltrates everything. I would say that I am always worried about something, unfortunately. I don't like that that's true, but it is. Like, if it's not homework, it's something else. It's like there's always this anxiety building up of like, oh God, oh God, oh God. And it's like, it feels like a deadline, even if it's not a homework assignment. And it's like the second I've relieved the stress and submitted the paper or something, there's something else to worry about. I think my brain's like addicted to stress at this point. You know, there's like, someone said we get addicted to cortisol releases. And oh boy, I'm one of those people. I don't know. I also think I have mostly academic stress, especially because my family is not really a college family. No one in my family did that. So when I didn't even tell my mom I was like enrolling in college. I just one day was like, I have to go to school to get textbooks. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I said, I enrolled in college 2 months ago and it starts in a week. And she went, wow. Why? In a very supportive way, but just like, I didn't think you were going to do that.
Yeah.
But okay. So it's almost like everyone, I'm the one that's going to make it. So I really got to make it. And, like kind of equating your self-worth with your grades. That's definitely a big thing for me. So it's like, I have never missed an assignment because I think it would like impact how I view myself as a person if I handed in an essay late, which is so dramatic. But it is what it is. That's where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Well, technically, my Nana did go to community college one time, and she took arts classes for 2 years. And then that's what she just kept doing that. She just drew for 2 years and she still draws. That is not a diss against art students.
No.
She just didn't like continue, and she admits that she kind of just did it because she wanted to draw for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. The equating your self-worth to your grades thing is tricky business because it's, on the one hand, it's an external thing that you're allowing to define you, but at the same time, you're responsible for the grades that you get.
Yeah, and then now my mom's very proud of me. So my mom tells everybody that I have a 4.0, and I do have one, and I feel like a walking, breathing, living 4.0, just 4.0 on 2 legs, which is like. And then other people are going to be like, oh, boo-hoo, you have a 4.0. That's a very valid criticism of me. Like, I should shut up. I kind of wish I had like a 3.8 or something, just because when you have the 4.0, like every assignment feels like end of the world stakes. Everything is make or break.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go but down from a 4.0.
There's nowhere to go but down. I'm like, I couldn't have gotten like a B on my first class. That would have changed everything. Especially because I almost dropped out of high school, like got real close to it. Had like a meeting with my mom and my guidance counselor where they both agreed it was best for me to drop out. And then I was the only one that was like, wait a minute, that sounds like a bad idea. And I like barely skirted by. So now doing well in school is kind of foreign to me. So I feel like I got to keep it going, you know?
Yeah.
But so far I've kept it going.
Yeah, but you're almost done.
No.
With the certificate?
Yeah, that's true. So I'm almost done with the certificate, but last semester was when I like officially started pursuing an associate's degree. So I am finishing one thing and starting another one. So I will be here for more time.
Well, we are glad to hear that, I think.
I do like it here.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Best job I've ever had.
I don't know what else I would be doing. So
Same.
No, I achieved childhood dream of mine. Like, you know, when you're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I wanted to teach flute, and that's what I did. So in 2020, at the very beginning of 2020, I had 3 jobs. I worked in sales, and I also drove around to people's houses and taught flute lessons on the weekend. And then I also had another job where I did dog training. And then I like realized one day of like, oh no, I have achieved the job that childhood me wanted, and I don't like it. And it was like, what do I do now? And then COVID made everything stop.
Yes.
And then when things started again, I just like could not. I had been working 3 jobs for a long time, and I don't think I realized how tired I was until I stopped doing it. And then I just like physically couldn't do 3 jobs again. So I said, I guess I'll go to school and see how that works out.
Yeah, not a bad choice.
And it's been working out.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Thank you for sharing all of that. We didn't talk at all about the show and what's going on here. So
why are we here?
Exactly. Why are we here? So I wanted to, if you'll indulge me about that, Shay. So my thinking behind this is an idea that I've had to do this podcast for years. Because I've been at the college for over 10 years now, and for quite a few of those years, particularly when driving here for some reason, probably because that's when I listen to my podcasts that I am fans of, I would always think that like I would like to talk to this person or that person or this person. And the fact that, have you heard about this CT State? We just became one community college with 12 campuses, and one recurring thought that I've heard during this transition is that how are we going to, every campus has its unique culture.
Oh, yeah.
And so it just seemed like a good small way to kind of preserve the Three Rivers culture by documenting some conversations with our students, faculty, and staff.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible for them to like erase the Three Rivers culture just because the sweaters in the bookstore say something different.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of the purpose behind it. My intention is to release an episode monthly during the fall and spring semesters. So hopefully, if I get on track, you're going to be our September 2023 episode 1.
Oh, no.
and then we'll have an October and a November episode, and then come back in the spring for...
It can only go up from here.
Yeah, season 1, part 2 in February, March, and April.
Cool.
But as you'll recall, at the beginning I said an untitled Three Rivers podcast. That's not completely true because I have a title in mind, but I haven't spoken it aloud to anyone else. So what I'd like to do is I would like to say my idea for the title. I don't want you to respond immediately. I want us to just sit with it, just sort of let it breathe for a second, and then you can tell me what you think.
Okay.
And if you don't like it, we can start over.
We'll cut it all out.
We'll cut it out.
And we'll do the whole thing again.
Start from the beginning. So I want to call... You ready? Mm-hmm. I want to call the podcast The Flow Down. What do you think of that?
I'm sitting with it.
So, okay, sorry.
You told me to sit with it.
I did, but I didn't... This is dead air also.
Okay. I think it's a great name.
What do you like about it?
Because we are Three Rivers.
Exactly, right? So there's the river pun, all right? And what rhymes with flow down? Throw down. We're kind of
and
throwing down.
This is the segment of the podcast where me and Mr. Marvin fight, and
yes.
you just hear the noises.
Exactly, ruining all of this equipment. But we're kind of throwing down in the sense of conversing, interacting, right? It also rhymes with slow down, which is a positive thing.
That's what I had thought about originally.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It just feels good. And I don't think...
And I don't know what else you would call it. So.
Yeah, I was thinking about like Off the Record with Andrew Marvin, or...
I think there's so many podcasts that are called that.
Yeah, unedited. So to lower expectations, about the audio quality.
Yeah, I was like, that's just insulting yourself.
But I think the flow down is pretty good. I might just use that.
I think it's good.
Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, then you have to learn how to edit and cut that out if you don't call it that.
Well, just leave it in.
Or you definitely could just call it unedited and leave all of this in.
Yeah, it'll probably just leave it in there. But I have to, put this up, and there's got to be a title for it and that kind of thing. Okay. So before we wrap, Shay, one of the hallmarks of the show, I intend, is to do recommendations from the guests. So this is something that you have brought to our conversation, something that you think people should check out. This is not like your TikTok account, for example, but it could be a piece of media, could be a study strategy, could be student-centric, doesn't necessarily have to be, but something you think people should check out after they finish listening to this episode. Do you have a recommendation for our listeners?
I do. My recommendation is to check out your local public library.
Of course.
Of course it is. But specifically, I feel like there's one thing I always, when I talk to people about libraries, because I'll talk to anybody about a library, I always tell them about museum passes, and then no one knows about them because they are kind of like on purpose, not advertised super well because they're expensive for libraries to have, but I think they should advertise them because, why do you pay for them if you don't have them? So every public library, at least in Connecticut, has a set of museum passes, which is paid for by, people who donate to the library, called the Circle of Friends is what it's usually called. And different libraries have different sets. If you live in a town that has more taxes, so in general, a wealthier town, you'll have more. But you can go to the library and ask them which museum passes they have, and they will give you a list of places you can go to for free just because you went to the library, even if it's not your town's library. That policy changes depending on libraries, but usually you have to go to the one that you pay your taxes to get the museum passes.
But I think library cards are used statewide, right?
Yep.
Wherever
you can take a book out you just have to get your library card from the town in which you pay taxes, and then you can use it anywhere in the state. Or even if you don't want to drive over there, your library will get it shipped to there for you to pick up. But the museum pass is usually a physical card, and you pick it up at the library and then you return it when you're done. Most of the time they let you in for completely free. I know Mystic Seaport's 50%. But my library has the Wadsworth Museum for free, the Lyman Allen Art Museum, Florence Griswold Museum. I know some places even have the Dr. Seuss place up in Massachusetts. I don't even know how they did that, how that works policy-wise. But just check it out. You can look on your library's website or you can call them. I think especially because the museum passes are a more expensive thing for libraries to offer, please use them. Utilize that resource, especially as broke college students that want to do something on the weekend and don't have money to pay to do something all the time, sometimes like you have museum passes to really cool places and it's fun to go see things and do things for free. They're especially more fun when they're free.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Shay, for that recommendation. Go check out your local library. This episode is sponsored by your local library.
Whichever one it is.
Whichever one it is. Go there and relax and breathe easy. Shay, I can't thank you enough for being brave enough to be episode 1.
I know. I'm just not going to think about it. I was like, no one will listen to it.
Well, yeah, it is episode 1, so nobody's going to hear this. So don't worry about it.
I'm just going to tell myself that no one listens to it.
Are you going to listen to it?
No.
Okay, well.
Maybe. I hate how my voice sounds so much, so.
I think we talked about it before we started. I think we both sound good.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for being here. If you enjoyed the show, please tell somebody else to listen to it. Until next time, thanks.
Bye. You're just talking just slower and slower.
Am I? Can you tell?
A little bit.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, you're right here. If you can understand me, then the listener, I mean, they can use, 0.9 speed or something.
Yeah, I think it's fine. We'll fix it in post.
We'll fix it in post.